Good morning. The May 3rd, 2023 meeting of the Board of Estimates is now called to order. For those who are joining us in person, we ask that you please turn your cell phone or electronic devices on mute, if not turning them off, to ensure that we don't disrupt today's proceedings. We'll also ask at this time that everyone continues to wear masks in City Hall until that mandate has been lifted. At this time, I'll ask our amazing clerk, Ms. Celeste Amato, for any corrections, additions, and noted abstentions on today's agenda.
Thank you, Mr. President, and good morning, everyone. We have the following changes and corrections to the agenda to note this morning. SB number 231141. This was an item from boards and commissions, architects and engineers. This was actually an item on the April 19th, 2023 agenda. And the following consultants were inadvertently not included on the agenda page. We want to add these 5 names. Again, this is in reference to the April 19th agenda, so it's a tiny administrative correction here. Peer Consultants PC, Pella Design Inc., Prime AE Group Inc. Sorry, I have to stay on this. Oh, okay. Got it. And when I get to, shout it out if I can. Sorry, we were just noting a late abstention, so we might tag team this one so I don't miss it for Madam Solicitor. Apologies, folks. The 5 consultants that we, again, want to make sure that we read into the record are Peer Consultants PC, Pella Design Inc., Prime AE Group Inc., SZPM Consultants Inc., and Watech Engineering Corporation. Again, these are all consultants approved by the boards and commissions for in review of architects and engineers, April 19th, SB 231141. We have the following item to walk on as an addendum today. This item is SB 231108. This is an item for Recreation and Parks. It is an award, SB 231108. This award is for RP 21820 Chick Webb Recreation Center to the second lowest responsive bidder, CAM Construction Company Incorporated, at their bid price of $15,596,406. This item was previously approved by the board and rescinded to maintain the sequence of events required for the HUD funding sources that were part of the project. So the board is actually approving this for a second time purely for administrative reasons. And we will come back to a later notation to recommend moving this back to the routine agenda. On page 33, we have SB 2311330. This was an informal select source contract 06000. TASER program number 0160. We are making the following corrections. Strike everything under the header amount and source of funds, and in its place, the total transaction amount should read $5,076,000. The correct work tags should read CCA 001224-1001-SC 630323. After the period of the agreement, we're striking October 30th, 2023 through October 31st, 2027, and inserting corrected dates November 1, 2023 through October 31st, 2028. We have another item to add to today's agenda. This is also an administrative correction. It was on our internal draft, and the system did not get it onto the final. This is SB 2311490, contract number B504091, computer desktops, laptops, and tablets. And an additional item, addendum SB 2311499. This item is a ratification and renewal of contract 08000 for True LL DNA software license and maintenance. And on page 129, SB 2311363, contract renewal for B505779 liquid chlorine. This item should be removed from the 5-3 agenda. It was approved on the 419 agenda. We are noting the following receipt of a statement of opposition for item SB 2311546, Department of Transportation, curbside commercial dining schedule. A statement of opposition was received from Bike More. We have the following deferrals and withdrawals to note this morning. Item number SB 23-11350, procurement payment of invoices without valid contract for the Charm Care Grant Reporting System. This item is being deferred until 5/10/2023 at the request of the comptroller. For SB 23-11513, procurement, rejection of all bids in response to solicitation RFQ 000082, snow removal services. This item is being deferred until 5/17 at the request of the council president. SB 23-11497, procurement, award for solicitation number RFQ 000235, removal and replacement of damaged drywall. This item is being deferred until 5/10/2023 at the request of the comptroller. SB 23-11511, procurement, sole source, contract number 8000, latent fingerprint development station installation, accessories, and training. This item is being deferred until 5/10/2023 at the request of the comptroller. And SB 23-11546, Department of Transportation, curbside commercial dining schedule. This item is being deferred until 5/17 at the request of the Law Department. The following items have been moved to the non-routine agenda. Page 92, SB 23-11561, Department of Law, the Minority and Women's Business Opportunity Office FY22 Annual Report. On page 94, SB 23-11478, Department of Law, Settlement and Release, Pinchback versus Cacharo et al. Page 95, SB 23-10855, Office of the Mayor Consultant Agreement with the Mayor's Office of African American Male Engagement, Squeegee Collaborative. Page 131 through 132, SB 23-11500, Procurement, Informal Extension of Requirements Contract for Goods and Services with Acme Leasing LLC. Page 133, SB 23-11330, Procurement, Informal Selected Source Contract Number 6000, TASER Program. Page 202, SB 23-11546, Department of Transportation, Curbside Commercial Dining Schedule. Again, this was initially moved to the non-routine because of a statement of opposition, and this item has now been deferred. We're asking the board to move the following items to the routine agenda. The added item SB 23-10108, item for Rec and Parks, award for RP 21820 Chick Webb Recreation Center. Addendum SB 23-11490, contract B5000-4091, computer desktops, laptops, and tablets. And addendum SB 23-11499, informal ratification and renewal of contract 8000, TrueLL DNA software license and maintenance. We have the following abstentions to note this morning. The Honorable Mayor Brandon Scott is abstaining on page 13. SB 23-10963, Health Department, BCHD 829, provider agreement with Johns Hopkins University Bartlett. On page 16, SB 23-10964, Health Department, BCHD 830, provider agreement with Johns Hopkins University. The Honorable President Nick Mosby has no abstentions to note. The Honorable Bill Henry has no abstentions to note. Madam Solicitor Ebony Thompson is noting an abstention on SB 23-11077, a travel request for the Maryland State Bar Association Legal Summit Annual Conference. And I believe the Director of Public Works, Jason Mitchell, also has no abstentions to note this morning. We have the following no votes to note. Council President Nick Mosby is voting no on the following currently routine items. Page 47, SB 23-11427, personnel for Monsey. On page 96, SB 23-11273, Mayor's Office of Recovery Programs, Professional Services Operating Consulting Agreement. On page 105, SB 23-11512, Office of Homeless Services, Amendment 1 to Non-Construction Consultant Agreement with Lessar Development Consultants. Page 106 through 107, SB 23-11200, Parking Authority, Lease Agreement for Office Space from Lexington Market. Page 109, SB 23-10765, Department of Planning, ARPA Subgrant Agreement with Farm Alliance of Baltimore. And on page 110, SB 10730, Department of Planning ARPA subgrant agreement with Farms and Food Access for Resilient Maryland Foundation. And that concludes our changes, corrections, and other notations for this morning, Mr. President.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. At this time, I'll take a motion to approve the opening statement.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and probably second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. The opening statement is adopted. I now direct the board's attention to a memorandum from my office dated March 1st, 2023, identifying matters to be considered as routine agenda items together with corrections, additions, abstentions, and no votes that have been noted by our clerk. I will entertain a motion to approve all items contained in the routine agenda.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. The routine agenda has now been adopted. The first item on the non-routine agenda can be found on page 92, SB 23-11561 from the Law Department. The request is to note the Minority and Women Business Opportunity Office Fiscal Year 2022 Annual Report. On behalf of MBU Office, we have our amazing Chief Lundy, here to present to us today. Thank you,
Good
Mr.
morning.
Chief.
Good morning, Mr. President, Mr. Mayor, Madam Solicitor, Mr. Comptroller, and Director Mitchell. How are you all doing today? Thank you so much for the opportunity to present this report. This is, as you said, the fiscal year 2022 MBU annual report. So this covers from July 1st of 2021 to June 30th of 2022. Pursuant to City Code Article 5, Section 2810, MBU is responsible for the administration of the program and to routinely present to this board how the city is going in pursuit of achieving the goals. This is the first time that we've had an MBU annual report in a little bit of time with COVID, and this now switches us to the fiscal year format. So we will be now in line with the fiscal year with our reporting. I'm happy to say that, of course, MBU has made substantial advancements in transitioning to a fully digital process. There is nothing now that you can do in our office that is not able to be accomplished online. So we really have gone greener, eliminated the paper, and have a much swifter process now. Our team, we still in fiscal year 20, and an important thing to note, so this is fiscal year 22, so we have now merged with the Mayor's Office of Minority and Women's Business Development, but that happened during this current fiscal year 23, so this is a look back of just when MBU was a sole office within the Law Department and not with our currently combined forces. So at that time, we had myself as chief, deputy chief, our single investigator, a program assistant, program manager, and 4 compliance officers. So that small team has handled all of the contract compliance generated throughout the city and the Bureau of Procurement to do, of course, the pre-bid analysis for this honorable board, but also doing that ongoing contract compliance once a contract has been awarded. And the key for everyone to keep in mind, as this board is aware, is we're looking at all of the contracts in excess of $50,000 to do this goal assessment. As I said, we did have that small team. The need for additional personnel and to expand was recognized by the administration in fiscal year 23 with a budget enhancement of $500,000, and I'm even more excited to say the mayor's extended that commitment as we move into fiscal year 24 with a multi-million-dollar enhancement to our budget that is going to allow us to grow at the rate that we really need to and to provide all of our services with our new expanded mission that is inclusive of development. During this year, we did have the disparity study. I won't go too far in depth with that because we did do a presentation in the fall, but that disparity study covered from July 1st of 2015 through June 30th of 2019 and was looking at all of the city spending across construction, architecture and engineering, goods and services, including professional services. And with that study, over that time period, the city had spent, that's $3.376 billion. We did make advancements from where we had been in the past. We're now at 29.32% going to minority and women-owned businesses. So that is a significant accomplishment. There has been discussion at the state level of how they're trying to continue to push forward to be able to get to their numbers, but they operate more so under a good faith efforts. And when we have goals on contracts, we are holding people obviously to account and potentially getting to a point of bringing discipline before this board. So that is a great number at almost 30%. It is beneath our overall goals of 37% with the 27% MBE and 10% WBE, but that is great progress, and we're excited about the partnerships we have with the agencies and continuing to move in that direction. Touching briefly on the certification directory, we now have transitioned to the B2G system. Again, that's very similar to the state MDOT platform, so it's much easier for our businesses to navigate if they're already registered in the state, or conversely, if they're registered in the city, they're already a vendor in that system, and it's much easier for them to get certified by the opposing agency. And that, of course, is at BaltimoreDiversityCompliance.com, and it is now an active certification directory. In the past, we listed all of the businesses that were previously certified but were expired were still listed there, which often led to a lot of confusion and left us with just bad data. And when we made the transition, we saw that there were many duplicates. There were people that were expired and no longer certified. So now when you see a business listed in there, it's active. So if you see it, they are good for you to list on a contract, do business, and have them count towards the goals. In terms of our numbers for last year, we for the first time have been able to do far more significant tracking of our numbers than we ever have in the past. Something we did for the first time is really look at the number of dollars awarded to minority and women's businesses of the contracts that we reviewed. So long caveat to say that is not all of the money that we've paid to minority and women-owned businesses, because MBU's only seeing those contracts in excess of $50,000 and when they're at a time that they're getting board action. But we were happy to see, even with those caveats being the case, we were at $19.8 million paid to MBEs and $3.5 million paid to WBEs. So those are good figures, considering those are only that subset of contracts. When we really look at our overall spending, when we get to the next disparity study, I'm sure those numbers will be far in excess of that. We have been able to get our response time to within 28 days for agency items from when they've been assigned to completion, and for items coming from BOP, we're at 12 days. The disparity there was the disparity of resources. My diligent, hardworking deputy, Stephen Campbell, he was assisting on the agency side when we were short-staffed by some departures, and was able to continue to work on those agency items, but they did take a little bit more time. On the BOP side, throughout that year, we had two compliance officers that were focused on BOP items, and that's why they were able to move significantly faster. We are going to be bringing on even more compliance officers over the next coming months that are going to make that process even quicker for the agencies. We're really focused on partnership and meeting with the agencies, whether that be the infrastructure office and their whole team that's looking at how we can improve the process and get things moving quicker, or just meeting with individual agencies about how we can improve the review process, because we want to assist the agencies, be partners with the agencies, and make sure we're effectuating their mission. We don't want to slow anything down. So we're very happy to see the improvement in the numbers. We did, in fiscal year 22, complete 26 investigations. So those are investigations for both certification and also for compliance. If there's something in the course of that compliance review that raised concerns about the utilization or the accuracy of the records, we send people out to look into those as well. We also have been tracking all of our questions now from the public. On the website, we have a new and improved MBU website that just got revamped last week. It's the combination of all of our resources, so it is now that one-stop shop when you go to the MBU site. And the key is contact MBU. When you go there, if you're a member of the public, you can submit any questions that you have. You can also upload forms to us there. Last year, during the fiscal year, we had 295 total questions submitted. So it's been a really good resource, and that is the preferred way, because those questions, when they come in, they're automatically filtered to members of my team so that they can immediately respond to it. Whereas sometimes if you email me personally, it may take some time for me to be able to filter that to the right individual that's going to be able to assist you. We are meeting frequently with the agencies to enhance our partnership and to ensure that we're clear on what they need. I'm not going to go page by page within the report, but there is a whole section about participation goals and waivers. I thought it was important that this year we level set and make sure everybody's aware of not just our roles and responsibilities, but some of these terms that we use when we're speaking of waivers and goals before the board, just to get additional clarity. And it really spells out for the public's purposes why we give waivers. It really points to a lot of the particular reasons. First and foremost, lack of availability of those minority or women-owned businesses that are certified in those areas. If we have a change in the contract after it's been ongoing, so sometimes that happens with the agency's allocation of work, that work unfortunately may be taken away that was originally dedicated to go to a minority or women-owned business. And also if it's state or federally funded. If the majority of that contract is state or federally funded, we will defer to their goals. So on the state level, we'll defer to their DBE goals that are on a project if they do the majority funding. And I'd be remiss to not say when it's just unable to segment. A great example of that is someone's salary. We can't subcontract out that individual's salary to get participation. And there are some contracts, obviously for goods where we're buying vehicles or things of that nature where we can't subcontract the services. But those are really the key reasons why we're giving waivers. And we're trying to do everything we can to avoid the lack of availability by continuing to develop more businesses. I have to give a kudos to Director Mitchell for, of course, the work they're doing on their unbundling initiative. One of the ways that that's going to be crucial is, of course, creating the opportunities with the unbundling, but also creating capacity as that program goes along to build up those subcontractors so that they can serve as primes and have that greater availability of qualified, experienced people in those fields as well. And that's something that we're going to be rolling out further in the city to have some additional guidance to the agencies about how they can break down their contracts in a similar fashion so that they can really get additional participation. So I just want to conclude and say, of course, we're going to continue to talk to the entire business community to make sure that we're getting feedback on what they need, whether that be mechanisms, resources, so that we can continue to serve them. We're definitely focused on our local minority and women-owned business community, but we want to hear from all the businesses to make sure that we're really doing everything we can to support them, especially our Main Street businesses that definitely are in corridors that are already established and thriving and doing well, but do need additional support and resources from the city. So we are really thrilled by the intentional, purposeful investment of this administration to continue to see the need to highlight these businesses and to continue to use this as a vehicle to grow economically and grow our communities in the city. So thank you all so much, and I will note that the full report will be online at the MBU website, hopefully later today, but if not today, definitely tomorrow, so you can have an opportunity to read it in depth for all these highlights.
Thank you so much. Just real quick, Mr. Chief, regarding the 29.8% that we were able to achieve, could you break down the MWBE inside of that percentage? Do you have that accessible or no?
I do.
Just for the record.
Give me one moment. I believe it was, well, let me not guess, because I do have it. One second to pull up the executive summary. Because I don't want to give you the incorrect numbers. That was... So total percentage of MBE firms is 21.80 of total MBE. The number I gave originally, that's 29.32. That was the total MWBE firms. And when you look at non-minority females, that's 7.52%. And then, of course, the non-MWBE spend then is 70.68%.
The non-WMBE spend is 70.68.
0.68?
70.68. I guess the thing that we're going to continue to work on and talk about is the disparity, or at least lack of involvement of minority women-owned firms. What's that number? The non-minority women. No, 7.52 is just women.
So the to do the math here for 1 second, but it is, I was going to give you some more recent numbers following the disparity study. So one of the beautiful things we're able to do now in B2G is actually to get the current composition of the directory. So through March, if we look at African American females in our certified directory actively, it was 19.91%.
Yeah.
Whereas if we looked at white females, it was at 25.50%.
Yeah, so I guess when we talk about the participation, African American women are significantly not proportionate to the amount of that we have in the directory. Particularly when you look at the growth of African American women-owned businesses in the city of Baltimore and this region, we're not seeing that in the participation actual numbers, right? So that is of major concern of mine. And, you know, we talked about this in the past when the disparity study came out. I think that from a micro perspective, we probably should just specifically do a disparity study specific to women to see what we can do as we continue to see the list grow. We're not seeing that participation inside those contracts. We're seeing minority women getting the bulk of all of the women contracts.
Yes.
It is of some concern.
Yes, it is, and I agree. I agree with that sentiment completely. I think one of the things we're trying to do is do that more targeted focus and outreach, and also to promote some of our local women's business organizations. They're focused on African American females to make sure that people have a resource network and are working in collaboration to get a lot of the information about some of these opportunities. Another thing that's important with our new revised website is that we now have a section that presents opportunities. So both our city opportunities within Workday, and then some of the links to the particularized agencies like DPW that also has opportunities. But we're trying to put more spotlight on where to find the work, because the thing we're hearing repeatedly from businesses, minority and women-owned business, and also the women businesses, is that they don't know where to find the opportunities. So we're trying to do a better job of keeping that first and foremost on the website. And then additionally, we've got a procurement fair for the city on June 15th. This is going to be taking place at the War Memorial building, and that is going to be an opportunity for the first time in a little bit of time where the city's actually going to have a unified front of presenting our forecasting of opportunities. And that's something we've heard from. It's been echoed in the disparity study, in the town halls they did, and also just anecdotally in the conversations that we have, that the forecasting is key for people to look ahead for their business and get the opportunities to plan and be ready for those contracts.
Yeah.
So we're trying to do more to make sure people know what's coming, and also baking in the opportunities more so. And that's where our meetings with the infrastructure team have been invaluable, because we're really getting people to think from square one when we're looking at these opportunities and we're thinking of their internal agency process and capital construction, that we're thinking intentionally about minority and women-owned businesses and how we can carve out those scopes to get more participation.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. President. The Chief actually answered a bunch of my questions in his response there. And Chief, my only follow-up is that what kind of support do you need to make sure that the agency directors, not Director Mitchell, obviously, because you've been working very well with him, but the other folks hear that message, excuse me, but also allow you and your team to do the work necessary to help them help themselves?
Yes, I appreciate the offer. One thing I will need is we're in the process of drafting some additional agency guidance. It's going to be a flow chart of when do you come to IMBU. The common question that we still have is like, well, how much is it, and what contract does it need IMBU approval? Those emails, believe it or not, still come in nonstop all day. So I want to give a nice, easy flow chart of if yes, then no, move to the next step of, is it a select source, is it a sole source, is it over 50? Just kind of visually walking through contract administration and the buyers, whether they need to seek out IMBU approval. We also have a few other guidelines that we're putting together about goal sheets and waivers and kind of some key points to keep in mind. We're working with the Procurement Assessment Group, the Harvard Procurement, the Government Performance Lab team. They've been extremely helpful, and we already have a unbundling guidance that we just completed that we're going to be rolling out in the coming months. But just amplifying the message when those documents are ready, I'm sure your office and the CAO will be able to assist on making sure the agencies understand the importance of adhering to those principles to get better contracts that have that focus.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. When do you expect that flow chart to be produced?
The flow chart, I think, is going to be a little bit sooner than some of the other guidance because I still want to get the performance lab's feedback on some of the other documents that are getting drafted. But I hope that's coming in the next couple weeks.
You plan on releasing independently or as a package?
I think that one's going to be independently because I
Okay.
do want people to just see the baseline of, is this contract 50,000? Is it a sole source? And the caveats, so we can kind of get that guidance out as soon as possible.
If you can make sure the board receives that when you put it
Yes,
out.
of course.
Really appreciate it. At this time, are there any additional questions or concerns from members of the board? Hearing and seeing none, thank you so much, Mr. Chief. We will note this item.
Thank you.
The next item on non-routine agenda can be found on page 94, SB 2311478, Law Department Settlement Agreement and Release. The request is to approve a settlement of a lawsuit filed by Charles Pinchback, who filed a lawsuit against the City of Baltimore and Baltimore Police Department from a motor vehicle accident in June of 2020. We have Deputy Solicitor, Mr. Salisbury. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Council President, Mr. Comptroller, Mr. Mayor, members of the board. This is a settlement arising from an incident that occurred on June 7th, 2020. The plaintiff was operating an electric e-drift scooter on the eastbound lane of East Fayette Street near President Street. This is sort of right out front of the police headquarters. At that same time, an on-duty BPD officer was operating a patrol vehicle from also in the eastbound lane, made an illegal U-turn to go to travel westbound. He was transporting someone, not in an emergency, no lights and sirens. The officer's vehicle struck Mr. Pinchback, who was knocked off of his scooter. He then hit the ground and was knocked unconscious. Mr. Pinchback was transported to UMD Shock Trauma, where he was treated for injuries to his face, an abrasion on his nose, injuries to his right shoulder and right hand. At all times, the officer acknowledged his fault in this incident. The plaintiff then needed to undergo several rounds of physical therapy. He ultimately had about $13,000 in physical therapy, medical damages, and lost wages. The driver, as far as remedial actions, the driver did receive a letter of reprimand. The attorney handling the case also wanted to note that the driver was very cooperative and contrite throughout this whole process. The law department has reached a proposed settlement of $37,500 in this case, and we request approval.
Thank you. At this time, are there any questions or concerns from members of the board? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and probably second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. This item is approved.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. The next item on the non-routine agenda can be found on page 95, SB 2310855, Office of the Mayor. This request is to approve an agreement between the city and the University of Maryland School of Social Work for the Squeegee Collaborative. On behalf of the mayor's office, we have the amazing Dr. Andre Bunley to present to us. I think this is the first time we've had you presenting to us, Dr. Bunley.
Yes, sir. Mr. President, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Comptroller, other members of this esteemed board. It's my first time here. Didn't even know what to do until I got a call from the CA. But yes, the contract that's on schedule, we are requesting that it be approved if that's appropriate. The contract is an $80,000 contract with the University of Maryland. Dr. Liggett Creel led that work. It was the initial work that we started with the overall boys and young men of color focus, which morphed into the Squeegee Collaborative, or the Squeegee Collaborative morphed under the boys and young men of color work. very, very significant work in that the University of Maryland did. The first thing is to make certain that we are very clear about the trauma-informed care that was necessary as we begin to engage our youth who have been on corners for 50 years in Baltimore, and wanted to make certain that we had that background, that research, and had some reflective thoughts about how we should engage our young people. As we have gotten into the work and what we've seen now, fast forward a little bit, we, in a very short period of time, but a lot of diligent work, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, we've reduced the 911 calls from our constituency by 70%. And if you all could see, just optically, if you look around the city, you can see fewer and fewer of our young people are on the corner, but they're in other places getting positive and constructive feedback and help. The social work, University of Maryland, Baltimore, with this contract, they provided us interns. Particularly, we needed it in our office because we have a small office. We were growing, but they were interns provided as we began to categorize our youth that squeegee, because when people see them, they just see young people out on the corner, but when you begin to engage them, you begin to categorize the need. And so what we wanted to do and what we constantly do in the work is begin to know our youngsters by name and need. And therefore, you begin to categorize what their needs are. And that we were helped in that regard from the University of Maryland as well. We had to do some surveying, about what our youngsters felt, because this was a very bottom-up process. The Chief Administrative Officer was emphatic about making certain that it wasn't an adult perspective, it wasn't adult-centered, but it was youth-centered. And their perspective was very, very important. And so we had to do a survey to kind of get a clear-eyed view of what it is that our young people needed. Overall, it's just been a great partnership, and we're looking to even expand our work as we begin to look at the youth violence work that we have to do in our city. And we have gotten some information. We have to do more, and we have to do some expansion, but we have a good start as to how we're going to proceed to expand our work to our other youth who have different kinds of hustles, if you will.
Yep.
Squeegeeing is his own hustle, but then there are other hustles as well. But we have seen how we engage our youth through the surveying process, how we do it from the bottom up, et cetera. So we're looking forward to continuing that work. So overall, I mean, the contract is $80,000. We've gotten more than the cost, I think, because through our relationship, we continue to ask questions, do what, and even though the contract has, I don't know if ended, but we still have a great relationship. We can get the information. So with that information, I'll stop, and if there are any questions, I'll answer.
Thank you, Dr. Bunley. I think the mayor has a question or a comment.
Yeah, no, mine is really a comment, Doc, for you, the city administrator, and the entire team. I just want to say thank you. We know, as you said, how long this issue has been around in the city, and while we know that it still happens in some cases, the significant decrease, the ability for us to connect those young people, and in some cases, as you know, their families with the resources necessary, is something that I think that we should lift up each and every time.
Yes,
Because the amount of energy, I know for the three elected officials on this board at least, and that was put into talking about the situation, we don't see that same amount of energy being talked about the reduction or what's happening in very few cases about how these young people have now turned their life around. So for those who have, especially in the past week, we appreciate that, but we have to continue to lift that up and push on, as you said, to the next frontier, which is taking this same approach that we know works and taking it to those young people that we know, unfortunately, are involved in hustles, as you would say, that could lead to them being hurt in youth violence.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, and I just want to thank you publicly for your diligence and strength in making certain that we deal with this issue in a humane way of dealing with our young people, having that history and understanding of what these young people go through every day, but at the same time being able to guide them in a way that's going to be constructive and positive for them. So thank you for your support in that process.
Thank you so much. At this time, are there any additional questions or concerns? Madam Solicitor, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Doc. I just wanted to have you describe again and highlight how the effective partnership with this consultant has eased the burden on your team that you are spending so many hours handling, as you say, decades-old problem, and how that has assisted you, how these partnerships like this assist you.
Yeah, well, one of the things that it actually came for you, Madam Solicitor, is this whole idea that we wanted to reduce the involvement of our young people with police. Yes. And so you emphasized, and we heard you clearly, this progressive discipline process. And so when we talk about progressive discipline, you have to provide structure for our young people, and they have to know that there are consequences, and you have to make them visible for them. But we know it's progressive. And so our intervention with outreach workers way upstream, if you will, before we get downstream, where police have to get involved, that was an emphasis that came from the information that came from the research that you did as a lawyer and what we needed to do. So I thank you for that. And the University of Maryland, what they did was, again, co-signed your thoughts about it, but at the same time helping those who were involved in the collaborative to see the historical trauma that comes with poverty, right? And so it all melded together. And again, it's the collaborative work has truly been collaborative. So, but that's how we proceeded based on the information from UMB and from the solicitor's office.
Thank you, Madam Solicitor. At this time, are any additional questions or concerns? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and probably second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. This item is approved. Thank you so much, Dr. Bowen.
All right, I need to get to my office to see.
All right. The next item on our routine agenda can be found on page 133, SB 2311330, Office of Procurement. This request is to approve an award of contract number 06000, TASER program to Axion Enterprise from October 30th, 2023 to October 31st, 2027. Here to present on behalf of the Police Department is Mr. Chief of Staff. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yes, I think this is your first time back as Deputy.
It's been a minute. Eric
Welcome, Mr. Deputy
Yes.
Commissioner.
Eric Balassa, Deputy Commissioner of the Compliance Bureau. The pieces of the puzzle when it comes to compliance fall under my purview, and that is the reason we're here today, to extend this agreement with Axon. We have been successful in achieving initial compliance with our consent decree on all paragraphs related to the use of what's called a controlled electronic weapon, or the brand name is actually, TASER is a, when people talk about tasers, it's actually the Taylor A. Swift electronic, device. And that basically, it's
Thomas Swift, not Taylor Swift.
Oh, Thomas Swift. Taylor Swift.
I didn't know that shit.
We see where your head is this morning.
That would be a very different love story, sir.
It would probably be pink.
That's all right. I'll just shake it off. I'll be okay. Thomas A. Swift, electronic.
Perhaps we should take a 5-minute recess.
I think part of what we want to make sure of is that our officers have the tools that they need to do their job effectively. And I think part of what we've seen over the past several years is an evolution of how our department uses this particular device. We have a bad history in the department when it comes to use of force. But the most recent monitor report from 2022 demonstrated that not only do we use force less, we use it more within policy, and it's not a disparate impact on communities of color. It is something from which we can see and demonstrate the impact of a collaborative process on policy and training when it comes to the use of less lethal forms of force. And that's what we have to have. The consent decree envisions us having a less lethal form of force beyond a firearm on the gun belt of our officers on the street. This agreement was important for us to maintain that compliance, right? You know, the TASER program has been an instrument for us in making sure we have that more effective means by which to handle an escalatory incident and to be able to, you know, render a situation safe and having it done so without the use of deadly force. And so for us, you know, we've seen the number of police officer-involved shootings go down significantly. The result of the training, which again was a collaborative process through the consent decree, through the community, through the DOJ, through the monitoring team. Overall, the impact of that program has been significant. And so we want to continue that compliance. We want to maintain and support that compliance. We're asking for this selected source in order to kind of keep things going the way they are. We've managed to create a budget for this that is the same as what we've had in prior years. So we've been able to curb any increasing costs to this program, which we've seen other jurisdictions have to face inflationary or escalatory costs who are, you know, entering into this, you know, without the kind of relationship we've been able to grow with Axon. But overall, this is for maintaining compliance. It's a $5 million a year program. That was something from which the clerk had made correction in the beginning. It is not a $10 million program. Overall, this is a 5-year extension, not a 4-year extension. And so we want to make sure that folks realize that we are maintaining within our budget, controlling costs, keeping the same TASER model that we've used. I mean, TASER, to their credit, they tried to sell me the more fancier, more expensive version. We said, no, we're trained on this one. This is what we need. This is what can maintain our compliance, because our officers are trained and certified on that model of TASER. And for us, that's the most responsible way to do this going forward. And so for that, you know, we were asking for support on this. I'm happy to answer any questions about the contract or the agreement. I want to thank the Office of Procurement and the Law Department as well for assisting with this. But overall, you know, this is something to help us maintain that compliance going forward and to do it in a way that is responsible on the budget.
So I guess the training and familiarity of this particular brand kind of really drives us into just going back there. Because going out there and doing market research analysis on whatever flavors are out there, like the Beyonce version, might. I had to do it. I'm sorry, guys. No, but that could create problems.
Yeah.
You have to retrain the whole entire force, and so just explain that real quick. So we'll
Yeah, absolutely. So if we were to subject it to a competitive process, there is a process by which this would be treated like a normal bid. And if the lowest cost vendor were to come in on this, it would require us potentially, if Axon was not the lowest bid, to have to retrain the entire department on a new device. And again, this agreement expires in October, so the turnaround time on that would have to be, you know, front-loaded and taking everybody off the street to be able to, you know, get that done. That incurs overtime costs. It is a significant challenge, and so for us to go outside of that process we know it's a big deal, and for us, we could demonstrate that our need for a selected source is about maintaining compliance, you know, keeping a certified program in place. And for us, again, we've been able to maintain any inflationary impact on this and maintain that fixed cost for the next 5 years, right? The projection on that is about $1.5 million worth of savings over the course of the next 5 years by entering into this agreement with these terms.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Commissioner. At this time, are there any questions or concerns? I see the hand raised of Mr. Comptroller. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. President. You got me thinking. I know, a dangerous pastime. If memory serves, sometime in the last decade, the police department changed its service weapon. Am I remembering that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, as someone who does not use service weapons, did that require significant retraining for, like, if you're moving from one model of handgun to another across the force, then does that require retraining to, like,
Yeah,
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
the short answer is, but that's normally done and is anticipated, and for that, the way that would work is it's a transitional process, right? So people go through annual qualifying, and when they go to qualifying, that's when we swap out the service weapons.
Okay.
It's different for TASER because it's all or nothing, and we'd have to be able, because once the contract expires for Axon, we would have to return all of the devices. It's a subscription-based model, and so
Whereas we're buying the service
whereas we're
weapons.
buying the actual service weapon and trading in the old service weapons from which we receive credit and deferment against the cost of the actual service weapon. So it's a different structure of contract, and for us, it's more manageable for the service weapon swap over, but for a TASER program like this, the same thing would be true for like a system, that we'd have to switch over. Like when we switch over to Workday, it's all or nothing, and it's the kind of service that kind of begins and ends. There might be some overlap, but the switchover has to happen all at once.
So from Axon's perspective, they have created a model of relationship between themselves as a manufacturer and police departments where it becomes very complicated and difficult to stop using them once you've started using them.
Well, I think part of what the planning of this is important. That's why we're trying to get ahead of the game on this, is to ensure that the goals and the mission of whatever the department is trying to push forward on are at the center of what the agreement is with the vendor. In the case of Axon and tasers, the way that the model is built is if the taser itself breaks or we need a replacement, there's no cost to that. It's simply swapped out and refreshed, in fact, before the useful life is ultimately expended, which is usually a 4 or 5 year window for these kinds of devices. But the same is true. For us, we envision in 5 years that we have significantly made progress in the consent decree to be able to find an exit, right? And so at that point, we could talk about a competitive process for something
Because at
like
that
TASER.
point, we wouldn't be required
Correct.
to have tasers at all, theoretically.
Well, I think we are finding ourselves in the policing profession where the less lethal form of force is always going to be part of the gun belt.
Okay.
What that is up to the departments and making sure they're figuring out what the best tool is for the time. There might be a different tool in 5 years that we might give consideration for. And so that's the piece of the puzzle that, again, it has to be driven towards the policy goals of the departments that are trying to bring these devices online.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Madam Solicitor?
Yes, thank you so much, Deputy Commissioner. And I just wanted to highlight what, at our latest quarterly public hearing with Judge Berdara, as you assured him that you would not be humble as Commissioner Harrison and that you would tout the success. And to the council president's point, please highlight the importance of training and the recognition and the accomplishments of training and the importance of us to stay on schedule with this.
Well, I think part of what I mentioned previously was we've seen an over 80% reduction in police-involved shootings since the training has come online. We've received a 49% reduction in any excessive force complaints from the public. We're getting our training academies in a premier facility now and out of the decrepit facility that it was in before. It's the front door of our agency when it comes to new recruits. We are lending our best practices to the world, and that's not a hyperbole. We've had over 40 different law enforcement agencies across the country show up on our doorstep and ask us, hey, can we use/borrow/steal your use of force policy? Because it is a best practice, and it lends itself to things like less lethal uses of force or the spectrum of force and the response from our officers that's appropriate and least intrusive, most effective. That approach is combined with our stop, searches, and arrest policy, again, which we've seen, the fewer number of instances of those released without charge, which used to be in the hundreds or thousands a year, now down to single digits. This is tremendously different a department than it was 5 years ago. And again, we continue to be on the cutting edge, the leading edge of setting the national standard, not just following it, but setting the national standard. That is what the Baltimore Police Department is doing, and programs like this are an example of that.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy. I always like to have examples. So for the general public, could you give examples of those, many of those other cities who are now coming to BPD to show them how to work? I think it's an important thing for us because you know that, I know that, the folks on the board know that, but the public needs to hear that a police department that, you know, in 2015 was the poster child for everything wrong with policing in this country has now flipped to being the poster child for everything that's right. And when folks are, my colleagues are going to DOJ and other folks that say, well, how do we do this better? They're being sent to Baltimore, which is something that we should be proud of, even though we're not perfect and we have a lot of work to do, obviously, but we should be highlighting the reality of how quickly that changed.
Yeah, I mean, the jurisdictions such as the LAPD, Philadelphia Police Department, Boston, Miami, Tampa. I mean, New Orleans actually comes to us now. They used to be back, you know, the other direction. It's funny how that goes. Cleveland, Chicago. There's been a number of major cities, again, coming to Baltimore and getting the guidance on how to build best practices. Some of the troubled cities that we see in the news, Memphis, Minneapolis, you know, Phoenix, Albuquerque, they're showing up on our doorstep because they are either, you know, halfway through a patterns and practices investigation or, you know, entering into consent decrees themselves and trying to understand how to get in front of changing the culture of a police department, which again, Baltimore has set the model for doing across the country. We've even had other jurisdictions outside of the United States, such as we've had folks from Scotland, the UK, we've had Japan show up on our doorstep, the Philippines, El Salvador, Dominican Republic. I mean, again, we're creating there's a group from Israel, Israeli police force is coming in a couple of weeks. I mean, it continues to be, again, the banner of what police reform looks like, all the while, you know, achieving more arrests this, you know, in 2022 than last year. We're curbing, as the mayor obviously knows, through the group violence reduction strategy, homicides and shootings this year. You can reform the agency and reduce crime at the same time. These are not mutually exclusive goals. In fact, if done correctly, police reform lends itself to increasing public trust, and that is what's absolutely needed to ensure we're curbing violence and reducing crime in the city. And so that's a big piece of the puzzle. We're, again, setting the model for that, Mayor, and I appreciate your support and the department's support of those initiatives.
I would expect nothing less that the police leader in Phoenix will be coming to us.
Yes. That is, of course, the person who used to occupy my chair, the former Deputy Commissioner of Compliance, Michael Sullivan, now the Chief of Phoenix, who's asked me a lot of questions, actually, to help build out Phoenix.
Any additional questions, members of the board? At this time, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. This item is approved. Now, we did move all of those walk-ons to routine. Am I right, Madam Clerk?
Oh, wow.
So we're good.
Very good on
We're all
this.
good. All right, just make sure. And before we close out,
Yeah, we still have
we miss
23, 11,500.
11,500. What's this?
What page, Bill?
See if it's
31.
It's on here.
page 131.
Oh, we moved it to the, okay.
Did we move it to non-routine?
Moved it to non-routine.
Okay. I assume you moved that, Bill, right?
Yes.
Oh, yeah,
that's
that's
how you
current,
know.
yes, yes.
Let's see.
There it is right here.
All right, I'll read it in real quick. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do have one more item before we conclude. This item is found on page 131. This is SB 231150, informal extension requirement contract. I think on behalf of the administration, we have Chief Keisha Brown from Procurement to present to us.
Good morning, Honorable Board, and thank you for the opportunity to present. The Board has requested approve an extension for contract B5000-4568, provide various rental vehicles. We're asking for this extension from July 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2023 for $2.7 million. And just to give a background on this particular request for an extension is to give us the opportunity to rebid the solicitation that we rebidded that we bidded in February and we opened in March. However, the suppliers had a host of non-responsiveness, and we asked to reject all bids at a previous board. So we're currently working with the supplier community and also the Bureau of Procurement to determine the best way to solicit. So we hope to have this bid back in advertisement mode in the public's eye within the next 30 days.
Mr. Comptroller?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, Mr. Mayor, I had put this item on non-routine because it's the third extension for this contract. This contract was originally awarded in 2016, at which point no MBE or WBE goals were set. And so I asked for this to be on non-routine because I wanted procurement to give us the opportunity to lay out the schedule for awarding a new contract and also share if MBE or WBE goals will be applicable at this point.
Is that a question for me, sir?
Well, you provided elements of the schedule for the new contract, but if you could lay it out more explicitly, when you expect to, the board to open bids, when do you expect to make an award, that kind of thing.
So to give you a tentative time, and we can come back and give you a specific, because what we're doing right now is hot washing, i.e. reviewing the previous bid where all bidders were rejected. There were a host of non-responsiveness, which was kind of a concern. Sometimes it's not always the supplier's response. It could necessarily be the solicitation. So that's currently being under review. In addition to methodology, did we do a pre-bid? Should we do a pre-bid prior to the bids being actually opened? So we hope to be able to do that in the next 30 days. The scope will go to MBU again for a review and determine what the goals would be, and we will public advertise it at that time.
That was the last part I wasn't sure about, was whether the scope had gone yet.
No, sir.
So, it will go to MBU, and they'll determine whether goals are applicable.
Yes,
okay.
sir.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, are there any additional questions or concerns? Hearing and seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So,
Second.
It's been moved and probably second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it. This item is approved. Before we adjourn, I think the mayor would like to make a statement.
Yes.
I had one.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think it's important. I know we moved it to the routine, and Director Moore was very upset that he wasn't going to talk about it today. But I just wanted to highlight the fact that this board has now officially approved what will be a total renovation of the historic Chick Webb Rec Center in East Baltimore, a institution that if you talk to folks who grew up in East Baltimore, like former Mayor Young, Senator McFadden, folks time after time will talk about how important Chick Webb has been to families and young people in East Baltimore. And this, again, is the next of our renovations or building brand new for recreation and parks. We also know we have J.D. Gross that is already underway for renovation in Park Heights, and we will soon be breaking ground on the Parkview Rec Center in West Baltimore, Mr. President, and we'll be glad to see also Furley Rec Center taking up from the ground as the new Furley Elementary is being built as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Comptroller?
Thank you, Mr. President. I would be remiss if I did not take this opportunity to share that last week was Take Your Child to Work Day. And our office partnered with the Baltimore Leadership School for Young Women and brought roughly 24 middle school young women ages roughly 12 to 15, and we'll come back to why that's important, down here. And they had, I think, a really good and educational time. They were divided up into groups and cycled around the different agencies that come under the comptroller, and they learned about each agency, and then the groups converged back here and did a BOE simulation, where one group of young women came up here to be the board, and the rest of the...
Who played Bill Henry?
I don't remember her name, but I was going to say the young woman who was playing the council president, really enjoyed her role leading the BOE simulation.
That's consistent.
Especially the part where she lobbied for votes on the board to reject a group that had brought a travel request for a conference in Disneyland. But the part I wanted to mention was that when that group of young African American women were sitting here in these chambers contemplating the leadership of the city, they saw no one who looked like them in the frames around this room. And why that I think was particularly poignant was because these were 24 young women who, for most of their lives, the mayor of Baltimore was an African American woman, and yet there are none in the frames around us as we conduct our business. And in light of that, I wanted to sort of bring this subject out into the open, because I know that there have been little conversations here and there about that over the years. But the fact remains that the last mayor that has been placed in a portrait for history was first elected last millennia, and that none of the mayors who were elected in this century have been captured for history after their terms were over. And I just wanted to say we should do something about that. And I look forward to having city government pursue the appropriate measures of having that omission rectified as we move forward.
Mr. Mayor?
I'll just say that, Mr. Comptroller, as always with Mervo and Loyola, I'm a couple steps ahead of you, so we'll follow up with you directly on that.
Are there any additional questions or concerns from members of the board? That being said, as there's no new business before the desk, the board will adjourn. The next regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Estimates will occur on Wednesday, May the 10th at 9 a.m. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in as well as joining us today. Baltimore, be safe. We absolutely love you.
Hi, Charm TV, we're ready. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Board of Estimates bid opening for May 3rd, 2023. I'm Celeste Amato, Clerk of the Board of Estimates. I had to think for a second about who exactly I am in this moment, since I have 3 jobs, I'm confused.
We're going to get your hats.
I am joined by my colleagues Tawanda Jones, Shalon Scott, Audrey Quarles, and Miss Casey Kelleher, who will be reading the bids for us today. Say hello to the crowd, Casey. Up first, we have some addenda to share. Quite a few addenda today. These all involve opening date changes for a number of bids. First up, Department of Public Works, WC 1229, rehabilitation of Vernon Pumping Station. I feel like that's supposed to say Mount Vernon. Oh, okay then. We'll go with that. Rehabilitation of Vernon Pumping Station. I might be wrong. The due date was originally today, and that new opening date is May 17th, 2023. Again, that was WC 1229, rehabilitation of Vernon Pumping Station. Also for DPW, SC 978, small diameter sewer main replacement in Roland Park of the Jones Falls sewer shed. Previous due date was today, 5/3/2023. That new opening date is May 17th, 2023. And again, that was SC 978, small diameter sewer main replacement in Roland Park. New opening date 5/17. For Department of Transportation, TR 23009, resurfacing highways at various locations northeast. Sector 1, that bid will now be open on May 17th, 2023. Again, that was TR 23009, resurfacing highways, Northeast. That bid will open 5/17/2023. Also for DOT, TR 23010, resurfacing highways at various locations Northwest, Sector 2. That bid will open on May 17th, 2023. Again, that was TR 23010, resurfacing highways Northwest. That will open on May 17th, 2023. For DOT, TR 23011, resurfacing highways at various locations Southwest, Sector 3. That bid will open on 5/17/2023. Again, that was TR 23011, resurfacing highways Southwest. That bid will open on May 17th, 2023. And in case you're sensing a pattern, you are correct. Department of Transportation, TR 23012, resurfacing highways at various locations Southeast, Sector 4. That bid will open on May 17th, 2023. Again, that was TR 23012, resurfacing highways Southeast. We have now covered the entire city. And that bid will open on May 17th, 2023. All that information will, of course, be posted on the Comptroller's website by close of business today, along with the bid opening results that we're about to start sharing. We have 3 bids to open today, and up first for Department of General Services, we have contract GS 16810RR, Mitchell Courthouse roof replacement. That sounds like a capital project that might involve a bid bond, maybe?
Okay, we have 4 bidders on this one. The first one is Cole Roofing Co. Inc. And we have, this is a bond. Okay, I have an amount, lump sum, $7,684,300.
And we do have a bond?
There is.
Okay. I'm going to repeat that number back. It's 7.
And there is a bid bond.
Cool.
Now.
And I'm going to repeat that number back. 7,684,300.00.
Yes.
Okay. That was Cole Roofing Company, Inc., $7,684,300.
Next on our list is Rough Roofing and Sheet Metal, Inc. This has a lump sum of $5,630,894. Do you want to read that back?
I will, but let me know if there's a bond first.
Oh, sorry, I get so excited.
It's okay. It is exciting.
And there is a bid bond.
Yay. Okay. That dollar amount, I'm going to read it back, was 5,630,894.
That's correct.
00. That bidder was Rough Roofing and Sheet Metal, Inc. for $5,630,894. Up next.
Up next, we have SGK Contracting Incorporated. Thank you. Alrighty.
With a bid bond.
This has lump sum is $2,376,000.00. And this one has a bid bond.
Thank you. That number was 2,376,000.00.
Super. Thank you. And we have one more.
Wait, let me just say one more time. That was for SGK Contracting, Inc., $2,376,000.
Last one for this bid is WM Schlosser Company Incorporated.
With a bid bond.
And it has a bid bond. Let's find where the lump sum is. All right, so lump sum is $3,477,000, 0 cents, and it has a bid bond.
Thank you. That number was 3,477,000.00.
That's correct.
And I believe that was the last of our 4 bidders, and that was W.M. Schlosser Company, Inc., $3,477,000. Up next, we have a bid for Bureau of Procurement, RFQ 000126, Charter Bus Transportation Services. Is this a lump sum or like a itemized?
There's no bid bond.
This is, okay. Okay, so the first company I'm looking at is New Beginnings, Charter and Bus. That is different. Okay. New Beginnings, Charter and Bus, and it's a total extended price is $2,786,400.
Okay, that price total was 2,786,400.00.
Yes, correct.
That was for New Beginnings Charter and Bus, $2,786,400.
There's one more bid for this RFQ. It's Civils Transportation, Inc. This has a total sum of $600,068,736. 668,736.
Could you repeat that one more time?
668,736.
Okay, I'm going to repeat that number back. That was 668,736.00.
That's correct.
And that was for, I hope we're saying this right, Civils Transportation, Inc., $668,736. And that was the last of
Yes.
2 bidders. Up next, we have a bid for the Department of Public Works, WC 1435. Urgent need for water infrastructure rehabilitation and improvements, Phase 3, fiscal year 22. And up first, we have,
First, we have J. Fletcher Creamer and Sons. This Inc. Thank you. This has a bid bond and sorry, very tightly bound book. Okay. $16,807,050 and no cents. Okay, I can repeat that.
that's okay, I can repeat it back to you.
Okay.
That number was 16,807,050.
050. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, 16,807,050.00.
correct.
Cool. That was J. Fletcher Creamer and Son, Inc., $16,807,050.
Next up, Monumental Paving and Excavating. This has a bid bond. Yes, affirming this has a bid bond.
Thank you.
And then the total bid, $26,093,450 and no cents.
That number was 26,093,450.00.
That's correct.
That was Monumental Paving and Excavating, $26,093,450.
Next, we have Ari Harrington, PHU. This has a bid bond. And the total sum is $15,989,950.
That number was 15,989,950.00.
That's correct?
Thank you. And you did say bid bond, yes?
Yes.
Okay, that was R.E. Harrington, PHU, $15,989,950.
The last one for this bid is Spinello. And it has a bid bond. And the total sum is $17,563,300. No cents.
That number was 17,563,300.00.
Correct.
That was Spinello, $17,563,300. And I believe that was our final of 4 bids for WC 1435.
That is correct.
That was, again, WC 1435, urgent need for water infrastructure rehabilitation and improvements, Phase 3. And that is also our last opening.
Spinello Companies. You got the companies.
It is not written that way on my sheet, Ms. Quarles,
It's-
but that's fine. Spinello knows who they are.
Yeah, but Spinello Companies.
I will type it in that way then, but that's not how it is here. That's, I just read what's on the sheet.
Okay.
Alrighty. I believe that is it for today. Our next bid opening is May 10th?
Yes.
Thank you, Autumn. Our next bid opening is May 10th, 2023. We will see you all then at noon, and thanks to our live audience.
It's okay.
Have a good one.